The one thing I love about real estate is every day I get to see something new, and then I get to educate my clients on it and kind of add it to my arsenal of experience. So when I see it again, I already know what it is and how to handle it. This week I had the chance to see a tub that was starting to slip through the floor. Not slip, I mean it was an older home, and so it had started to sink in the floor a little bit. And of course that's a huge red flag because either the sellers have to fix it or the new buyers are going to have to fix it down the line. And so alarm bells kind of go off and all these sort of things. But it inspired me to do this video for you guys because sometimes people don't realize certain things that you should definitely be looking out in a home. And that brings us to today's topic: homes that you should not purchase. Now I say that dramatically a little bit because ultimately it is always your decision, but you should definitely keep in mind some of these things that we're going to discuss when you're looking to purchase your next home, because they could be more costly down the line. And I know everyone has their own risk assessment and what you're comfortable with, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just giving you some tools and information so that, as always, you can make the best decision for you. If you don't know who I am, I'm Brina Gordon, your favorite Center Texas realtor, and we're gonna jump straight into this video, homes that you shouldn't buy, starting off with number one. And it's older homes. And I know that's like, well, duh, Brina, or, but oh, I like the character, whatever side of the fence you're on that. But I wanna kind of discuss why I say that, because as somebody that loves older homes myself, because a lot of times they do have a lot more charm and just different characteristics that you may not see in some of the brand new homes. And I know some people will have their own quarrels with brand new homes, and I totally understand that. But I'm talking about some of the fundamentals and the structures of the homes that you just have to keep in mind when it was built and how it was built compared to how homes are structured now. Yes, some people may say homes are built too quickly and all those sort of things, and in a lot of cases you are correct in that. However, some of the safety mechanisms that are in place now are a lot different than homes that were older, and that's more so my concern. When it's older homes, of course, it's a 100-year-old home. They're in historic districts. They're gorgeous. They've gone through years and decades of maintenance, which sometimes is troubling too, because it's very hard to track the history of that home properly when you've had several owners and changes and renovations, and you're trying to see what it was done properly, what was permitted, and all those sort of things. So tracking the history is one reason of older homes. But two, when lead paint was used, asbestos was used, it didn't have smoke detectors in homes. There's a lot of little things that people don't always think about when they're looking at these older homes. Yes, they've got charm, they've got style, all of that is awesome, but some of the safety behind it is not there compared to new ones. So just something to keep in mind, when you're looking at these older homes. Like I started out in this video, this week I got the opportunity to have an inspection, to be at an inspection. We had an inspector that was, of course, doing the process, but to see some of the things from their perspective with a home that was built to the 60s. Yes, it had been flipped, it looked really nice, but some of those still base structures, it still had some of the original plumbing, which of course, as the time continues, that's going to become that new homeowner's bill at some point to get things switched out. Like I said, the tub had started to sink in a little bit. And so just little things like that, well, not little, but things like that start to really highlight in some of the older homes. When they're pier and beam homes, that inspector has to go under that home to actually do the full inspection of it, to check plumbing and all that. And I'll insert a little clip here because people don't even realize, even as a homeowner, it's something that you may want to keep in mind. Hey, if I gotta go check something under my home, I gotta crawl under here. And I don't know about you, but that is not my cup of tea. And of course you can hire someone to do it too, but just keeping in mind a lot of those things and the way that things were structured back then. Bathrooms were smaller, so if you have to do repairs, sometimes it's a lot harder to kind of get stuff up to date. So codes have changed, structures have changed, a lot of things have changed. And so that's why my number one thing, certain ages of homes you may just want to be a little bit more wary of, or just do more due diligence, or just be aware like, hey, I'm okay if it's going to be costly down the line. I really love this home. Maybe that other person has already done a lot of the heavy lifting and I've just got to maintain it or do some smaller things. But to know and understand what that home may cost down the line is something that I don't think everyone always considers. They look at the charm, but they don't look at the behind the scenes. And this happens a lot more in those flips because, of course, they're usually, a little bit less expensive to purchase for an investor. They go and flip them and then they go and resell them, and so they look good, but sometimes the behind the scenes isn't always up to date. And you have to be very careful with electrical in those, because to a certain degree you'll never be able to get it up to today's standard because it just wasn't wired that way. So sometimes also having that expectation of, hey, I have an older home, so no, I'm not going to have some of the features that a new home has, because it's not a new home, and that's okay. It's just understanding it and being comfortable with it.
Hey, if you're thinking of relocating to the Fort Cavazos area, I have just the thing for you. My team and I have actually taken the time to create the ultimate relocation guide, which is meant to save you hours of research. And I have it linked right down below. The best part is there's no obligation to this, and it's going to come with everything from the top employers to the best schools and a boatload of other information. Everything that you need to make the best decision. Again, no obligation. So make sure you click the link below. It also will be pinned, and I hope that it helps.
And also just be mindful when you're looking at older homes, but especially if they're outdated. I know a lot of times people want to purchase them so they can make them their own, put their own interior design touches on there, and that's totally understandable because that's something that I like to do as well. However, be very mindful of the cost of things, whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring contractors to do it. It is very easy to get overwhelmed or for expenses just to cost a lot more than you originally anticipate, because unfortunately when you start pulling up stuff, you're bound to run into something that maybe you didn't quite budget for. So just being very aware of that, because it can of course get a lot more costly than you may realize. But we're going to jump into the next one because it's not always something people realize, but dealing with homes in flood zone areas or flood prone areas, risk areas, whatever you want to categorize it as, it's definitely something to be mindful. When dealing with flood prone homes, it's important to look at FEMA flood maps when they classify in different categories. If it's A or B, those are more high risk areas and may require mandatory insurance if the mortgage is from a federally regulated lender. And so sometimes people don't realize it. Even myself, I'm very communities that I'm very familiar with, and I'll randomly run across a home that, you know, is in a flood zone area, and you're like, well, how did that happen? This area doesn't flood. So just being mindful of that. Now the good thing is typically it is disclosed in the MLS so agents can see it. Now patterns do change. We are seeing nationwide as all sorts of natural things are starting to shift, so we may see some changes in our own areas of how flood zone areas are impacted, or changes of new flood zone areas. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, because typically they do have a higher insurance, and so sometimes that can bump you out of that price range. If it's too high, it can have the home sit on the market. Maybe that home is lower because they also have to pay higher flood insurance. There could be a lot of different variables in it, but it is something to really keep in mind, especially if it's a newer one, because that kind of shows pattern changes of that area, and you don't know as an investment where it would be down the line. Now it's not always in the world, because I have sold homes in flood zones, but it's typically very minimum, or it's just a portion of it. So by no means do I want to scare you away from it, but I do want to educate you on it. And there's tons of resources out there. And of course, if you're working with the lender, you can ask them additional questions, have a good mortgage broker on your side so they can kind of explain your options with you as well. And they can also look at the history of the property. Of course, if they are seeing claims that, hey, they have claimed flood damage for several years or several different cases, then that's definitely maybe not ideal, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at homes, and especially if a flood zone does pop up on your radar.
All right, now for the question of the day. What is the first thing you look for in a new city? Is it a coffee shop or your favorite store? I really want to know, so make sure you comment down below, or better yet, shoot me a text, email, or even give me a call. All my information is going to pop up here on the screen. So again, what is the first thing you look for in a new city?
Now topic number 3 is going to make you laugh a little bit, but it's true. You want to avoid areas with high industrial noises or, you know, smells. And I know that seems like a weird one, but you'd be surprised where homes can be built near, and of course it's going to affect their property value. And it may be like, oh, of course I went by there, but again, these homes can be lower in price to compensate for the surrounding area, which could attract people. But just keep in mind that future, if it's not your forever home, at some point you may be looking to sell it or rent it out, and those external factors could directly affect your property value or just, you know, your own enjoyment of your home. So keep that in mind. And I also bring that up because living in a military area, even being far away from base when they are doing some of their drills or practices, we can still hear the booms over here. And I can imagine the closer you are to that area, then of course the louder it will be. It can shake your home, it can do all sorts of things. And I was just talking to a client that where she previously lived, they did not realize how bad the base there was going to impact their daily lives, just because it literally would shake their home. And so just keeping things like that in mind, especially for military people that are purchasing out of state, sight unseen, or you're just looking, you know, you're looking online, or maybe your agent is just doing videos and stuff, but you actually never realize what's close by or something like that. Now, sometimes it's hard because if something is built after you purchase your home, that is just something that it does happen, and it's not always preventable. But when you do live close to military installations, industrial areas, airports, that's a big one too. Yes, you may get a better deal, but it can come at a price later on. So just keep that in mind, because it does happen, and these are real estate stories every day.
Hey guys, as much as I love making these videos, there's one thing that I absolutely love more, and that's helping families from all over the US make the move here to the Fort Cavazos and surrounding area. I've helped countless families move here, so whether you're coming out next week, next month, or even next year, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My contact information is going to be right here down below in case you missed the pop-up screen, and I look forward to helping you and your family move to our beautiful area.
Now, I definitely want to hear your opinions on what we have shared so far, so make sure you comment down below if you've run into any of those sort of situations before. I definitely want to hear your story. But that brings us to our last topic, and of course, as always, my contact information is here. Call me or send me an email, and I'm happy to answer questions or get you started on your journey. But this is going to bring me to my last topic, and it's probably not for the reason that you think it is, but I'm going to break it up into really two little sections, because one is obvious and the other is probably not something everyone considers, but it is something that I share with my clients. Is going to be some new construction homes, and I say some because sometimes new construction is the best option out there, hands down. There's some new construction builders that I love, and there's some that are, they're good, but everyone's got their pros and cons. But one reason is going to be some of them when they're overpriced, because of course I expect a higher price tag. They're brand spanking new. They've got all the bells and whistles. They've got the upgrades, whatever the case may be. So we are expecting a pretty decent price tag on there. I think a lot of things have calmed down significantly since post-COVID. So when we were seeing those shifts, those increases, weekly, daily, sometimes it seemed like a lot of that has definitely calmed down. Prices have definitely been leveling out significantly. But sometimes I will run into some that I think are just a little bit high, or definitely pushing it for the area, for the community, or a combination of both. But just being mindful of that. Now, like I said, sometimes they are the best deal out there, even with their price tags, because they're helping you buy down your rate, they're covering closing costs, you've got warranties. So yes, I definitely understand all that, and I am by no means telling you not to buy any sort of new construction, because I understand where we are sitting as our interest rates and everything, and they have fantastic deals out there. However, I am telling you, just to make sure you're comparing all your options. You don't necessarily always have to go to the biggest one, you don't have to go to the smallest one. Just compare everything that you need in a home, that you want in a home, and what they are able to provide to you monetarily as far as their incentive, and see which one is the best fit. And then my second part of that is sometimes they are very much cookie cutter. And I only bring that up because if it's not your forever home, at some point you're going to rent that home or sell that home. And you have to be able to make your home look distinguishable against your competitors or your neighbor's home, because if you guys both have pretty much the same floor plan, almost the same interior, there's not a real drive to get somewhere there, regardless if it's renting or selling. So my only caveat with that is when people do purchase new construction, I really try to encourage them to do some sort of personalization, add pendant lighting to it, do a really nice accent wall, do something to where when people walk into that home, that down the line when you go to sell it, they're like, oh, I've got to have this home. Extend your patio, get a pergola, do something to where it really starts to draw people in, because every home was a new construction home at one point. It's those upgrades or just something throughout time that started to draw people. So that's my only caveat, is one, being careful sometimes when they're priced just aggressively high. I mean, there could be various reasons for that. It's definitely not all of them. Again, I sell new construction. There's a lot that I do love, but just being mindful of the total packages that they're able to present. Two, distinguishing your property against your neighbors, because at some point, if you do choose to sell it or rent it, you are now on competition with the market, and so you got to be able to separate yourself. And that's really my only caveat with new construction. So I know people feel certain ways about their construction times, and we can do a whole nother video on that, but the pricing some, and then making sure that they look different when you go to sell that property down the line. But as always, I'm Brina Gordon, your favorite Central Texas realtor. I hope that these points gave you some advice and just some things to keep in mind, and hopefully save you some money down the line, or know how to better invest your money, because of course real estate has been one of the top ways to create millionaires in our country. And so if you are looking to gain your portfolio, these are definitely things to add to your portfolio. These are definitely some things to keep in mind. So comment your questions down below, and I hope that this information was helpful.